We are excited you are considering applying to the California RISE program. This video will provide you a more in-depth review of how to complete the pre-application. This is the second step in the application process. The first step was to watch the webinar. If you have not watched the webinar, please stop and watch the webinar before proceeding. As a reminder, California RISE is a competitive grant administered by the California Office of Small Business Advocate. It is the first statewide program of its kind in the United States. California RISE will supercharge the power of California's employment social enterprises to advance economic inclusion and mobility for people overcoming barriers to employment through $25 million in direct grants and technical assistance. Two quick reminders: this application is due on October 20th, and you must be providing services in California to employees overcoming barriers to employment to be eligible. This first page is informational only and provides an overview of California's definition of an employment social enterprise, instructions, and a data disclosure. You can navigate through this pre-application by clicking Next, Previous, or using any of the numbers at the top. Additionally, you can save your progress and return by clicking on this button. You must use the same device and web browser used to start the survey because a cookie is stored in your browser that remembers the survey responses. If you have any logistical, procedural, or technical difficulty questions about the pre-application or application process, please contact carise@rediff.org. Note: Rediff is unable to provide tailored advice on your application as this is a competitive application process. This page gathers contact information of your organization and for one individual from your organization. The individual contact information provided should be for the person who will be monitoring your California RISE application status and who will be able to respond to further inquiries. All communications about the application status will be sent to this individual. The parent organization information question refers to an employment social enterprise that may operate as part of a larger organization. If this applies to your application, we will request basic contact information for the parent organization as well. The employment social enterprise information should be specific to the employment social enterprise that is submitting the application. If you'd like to apply for more than one employment social enterprise, you will need to fill out a separate application for each different employment social enterprise. If your employment social enterprise operates more than one business line under the same organization, there is no need to fill out multiple applications. If your organization operates in multiple states, please provide the California address for your application. This page is a self-attestation that your employment social enterprise operates in California and you have watched the webinar. If you have not watched the webinar, please stop here and watch it prior to completing the form. If you do not employ individuals who are overcoming barriers to employment in California, you are not eligible to participate in this program. This page outlines the definition of an employment social enterprise in more detail, as well as the types of barriers to employment this program is focused on. There are several incorporation questions about your employment social enterprise. If your employment social enterprise is part of a larger organization, these answers should reflect the employment social enterprise, not the parent organization. When you select for-profit or not-for-profit, an additional question will appear. Please be sure to answer both the initial question and the conditional question that is based on the selection of for-profit or nonprofit entity. Being the employer of record means an employment social enterprise that hires and employs W-2 or 1099 employees. Supportive services and assistance overcoming barriers can be done at the employment social enterprise or through formal partnership. These are services outside of the traditional work environment. We have provided examples under the question. This is not an exhaustive list, but should give a good idea of the types of services we are intending to reflect in a yes answer to this question. Skill building refers to training and assistance in strengthening soft and hard skills. These resources can also be provided on-site or through a formal partnership. Examples are also provided here. The next two questions ask about measuring outcomes and using evidence-based practices. The last four questions are about the business your employment social enterprise operates. If your business does not have customers, please leave the question unchecked. If you have multiple customers, check all customer types that apply. The last two questions are about your participant workers and their role and wage at your organization. Please select all industries that your employment social enterprise operates in. If your employment social enterprise is part of a larger organization, these answers should reflect the employment social enterprise, not the parent organization. Earned revenue is defined as a revenue generated by selling goods or services and tied to the employment provided by your employment social enterprise. This does not include revenue that is contributed, such as donations or grants, or revenue generated by activities that do not include employment of individuals overcoming barriers, such as rental income. Government funding can qualify as earned revenue depending on the type of funding. If it is a government contract that procures business services from your employment social enterprise, then Rediff would consider that as earned revenue. If it is a government grant or contract that subsidizes wages or other programs' cost, not in return for products or services, then Rediff does not consider that as earned revenue. Operating budget for California RISE purposes is defined as the total expenditure expected within 1 year. If your employment social enterprise utilizes any government funds to subsidize this program, it should be documented here. We will ask additional details about this if admitted into the program. The information collected through this process will be maintained in a safe and secure manner by Rediff. Rediff will not disclose individual level information, but does reserve the right to share anonymized aggregate level data that does not identify the individual or individuals providing this information. The California RISE program is open to all organizations running an employment social enterprise and gives preference in the competitive grant process to employment social enterprises located in underserved regions of the state with characteristics such as rural, disaster impacted, and low wealth, and employment social enterprises led by people with lived experience, including but not limited to having been incarcerated, homeless, or engaged in substance misuse. Your organization is still eligible for the California RISE program if you decline to answer the following questions and meet the employment social enterprise requirements. The next text provides definitions of the terms used in the questions below. If you are not the executive director of the organization, please click No and fill out the requested information. While the contact information is mandatory, the lived experience question has an opt-out response. The next two questions are about the leadership team and board of directors. There are options to opt out of answering each of these as well. Based on these definitions, you will be asked to choose which track you think aligns best with your employment social enterprise. This is a preliminary question to gauge interest and does not align you to one or both tracks. If you are unsure, select the one that you feel you would gain the most value from. Please note, the Employment Social Enterprise Fundamentals track is meant for small businesses that are not currently meeting all the requirements of an employment social enterprise, but are interested in learning more. An Employment Social Enterprise Fundamentals does not come with grant funding. Application materials will confirm the track selection. You must certify all of the information in your pre-application is accurate to the best of your knowledge. The submit button will remain gray and you will not be able to submit the application until all required questions have been answered. Upon submission, you will receive a confirmation email. If the submit button is still gray and you have certified the information, it means you have missed a required question on another page of the application. Please go back and read through your responses and make sure your application is complete. Questions with a red asterisk indicate a required response. Once you have answered all the questions in the pre-application, a box will appear that confirms you are not a robot, and once confirmed, the submit button will become blue and active. Please hit submit, and you will receive a thank you. Thank you again for your interest in the competitive California RISE grant. As a reminder, pre-applications are due by October 20th. Eligible applicants will be invited to participate in the full application process. The point of contact provided in the pre-application contact section on page 2 will receive the notification of eligibility. If eligible, the point of contact will also receive the application materials. Ineligible applicants will receive a communication and will be invited to explore other opportunities with Cal OSBA and Rediff at a further date. If you have any questions about the application process, please email us at carise@redf.org. Note, Rediff is unable to provide tailored advice on your application as this is a competitive application process. Thank you again for your time and interest in California RISE.